What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. It is 12 AM and I'm currently vibing, making a video, which seems to be the case on most of my videos now. I seem to do them late at night. I don't know. Anyway, before this my last coffee wears off, let's get into this video. Before I start, I just want to lay out, this is my style. This is how I edit a minimalist style with my photos. It is definitely not the be-all or end-all rule. You might have a different way of doing it. You might find a different way of doing it. Just bear that in mind. I will say that a lot of the minimalist style that you'll see in these photos and how a lot of people do them actually kind of comes down to the photo itself and the composition. Essentially, there's only so much an edit can fix, so just keep that in mind. I also want to say Chris Chu was a massive inspiration to me getting more into experimenting with minimalist photography. I do a lot of minimalist design work with my graphic stuff, so I wanted to have a go at bringing that into my photography more, and his videos and Instagram has been a huge inspiration, so definitely go check him out. Links for his stuff will be in the description below. Okay, so let's jump into this. We're going to jump on over to Lightroom and get into editing these photos. First photo here is my design books for grid systems. Super interesting book, definitely recommend, especially if you're into graphic design or like layout design, that sort of stuff. Well, let's work through this edit. So for my workflow, first step I do is I crop. Now I can't remember where I learnt this from because I didn't always used to do this. It was explained to me that if you're gonna, everyone usually crops at the end, and I used to crop at the end, and if you crop at the end, you're cutting out a section of the photo that has affected how your edit looks. So if you had a really bright spot that you end up cropping out anyway, that's going to affect like your edit and the histogram and everything. So actually cropping at the beginning to the size that you want is actually a better way to go about it, because then you're editing the photo that you're going to end up with, if that makes sense. So we crop. This one's going to be a 16:9. I'm going to get that. I'm going to bring it in, so I'm going to get that. I can bring it down a bit here, something like that. Yeah, that works. I'm happy with that. First off, got it cropped, got it how I want it. I'm going to bump the exposure, brighten up a lot, and we're going to drop the contrast. Don't want as much contrast in my photo. I'm going to do a quick white balance just to make sure. That's made it a little bit too blue. Once I've done exposure, contrast, white balance, basically start working our way through things here. So I actually skip past the highlights and shadows and stuff just till later. First off, I want to knock out some texture, knock out some clarity, because I don't want as much texture across the photo. I want quite a flat minimalist look. So we do that. Big part of this is I come to the tone curve. So this is where I do a lot of, this is what affects a lot of the edit and the look of it. Slap a point in the middle. I slap a point at each quarter so you can get a nice curve going. And then what I actually do is I crush the top end. So grab that top corner point and pull it down. Not hugely, you can kind of see what happens if you do it a lot. But I crush the whites, and then I do the same with the darks, but not as much, only slightly in that. And then we're going to just add a slight bit of contrast there. So already we're getting a much flatter, like brightened photo. Now, after doing the S-curve, I'm going to come back up here and we're going to bring down some of the highlights. I'm going to push the whites out of it and the shadows, but then bring the blacks down. Already starting to get a feel for this photo that I like. This area, kind of the highlight, shadows, whites and blacks, I prefer to drop the blacks darker but reduce some of the shadow. And for the whites, I prefer to push the whites and drop the highlights as much, so it's not there's not as many hot spots. But that kind of starts to get the general feel. And then this is kind of where, like, I like a lot of grain in my photos, so I'm going to add in a decent amount of grain. I just like the feel of having sort of grain across the photo. Obviously, I know I took out some of the texture and clarity because that's too harsh in my opinion, for this style of photo that I'm going for. Whereas if I just add in some grain myself, it kind of gets that feel that I like. And that kind of already is basically giving you the basic look of the photo we're going for. You can see the before and the after. What changes photo to photo is then like the HSL. So for this, I kind of want to desaturate the yellows a bit because I don't want the wood to feel as yellow. And then the orange, I'm just going to bring down a little bit. I don't want it as bright as it is. So the orange and red, I'm just bringing down a little bit. And this has already pretty much got the look that I'm going for. Here, because I'm trying to go for a minimalist look, there's a couple of spots, mark on the wall, this seam on the wallpaper. So just to get rid of them, I'm literally just going to use the spot removal and then hides those. They're not a distraction anymore and just keeps it a simple thing. Now, as I said at the start, a lot of these photos, it comes down to the composition. There's kind of a general rule of thumb for like a minimalist photo, which is 3 different items. Chris Chu talks about it in one of his videos. But essentially the rule is rule of 3. So wall, table, book, that's my 3 things. You don't want too many things going on because it pulls the eye to too many different things and it loses that minimalist feel to it. Pretty happy with how that looks. Again, the before, the after. Nice, pretty simple, minimalist style. Photo number 2. Again, I'm going to start with a crop. I'm going to do a 4x5 this time. Nice Instagram crop. Now, this white cap that's in focus, I really want to grab that on this intersection point. We're going to push the exposure up. We're going to drop the contrast, drop the texture and the clarity. I'm going to just tweak the white balance. There we go. And then back to our trusty tone curve, same 3 points in each of the quarters. And then we're going to bring top end down, bring darks. Now you can see a lot more on this because of the bright sun. You can see how it pulls out some of that brightness from the sun. It kind of evens out. It like compresses down the top end of that, what is the whites. Get that to a point that you do like. Back here, pull down the highlights. Push the shadows a little bit out, bring the blacks down, and then same for the whites, just a little bit. Highlights I'm going to bring right down on this one just because of how bright that window is. And the whites we're just gonna keep fairly, just a little bit up, just a little bit. Already got that flatter sense of like a minimalist look. Gonna add in the grain that I like, very much so. And then we're gonna play with the colours here again. So the blues of the caps, I kind of want to bring them down a bit. I don't want them as bright. And bring down the yellow on orange a bit. Just want to flatten the colours so they're not as saturated and bright. And there we go. I think I quite like that. Job's good. So that's the second photo. Super happy with how that looks. Again, before and after. Gives that nice, brighter, flatter, minimalist look to it. Photo number 3. This one, I really took the time setting it up and getting a nice composition. I really like this photo. You got the table, the wall, the plant, rule of 3. So, step 1, same again. I'm going to crop it first. Now, this crop, I really want to pull in actually quite tight and take off some of the plant. We don't need all of that plant there. You can see straight away that crop is really nice. Really minimalist feel to this photo. We go again, same again. Bump up the exposure, decent amount. We're going to grab this for the white, just tweak it so we get a nice feel for that. Going to drop the contrast. We're going to come here, we're going to drop texture and clarity down again. And we're going to go to the tone curve. Back where most of the magic happens, we're going to plop in our 3 points there. Going to bring the darks out, and then we're going to really pull down the top end on this because it's quite a bright photo. Because it's so bright, I'm actually going to bring the exposure in a little bit, just because it's quite a bright photo as it is. It's quite well exposed already where I want it. And we're going to bring the highlights down, push out the shadows a bit, and then we'll bring the whites up, just the darks in. Going to go and add our green. Let's not forget that. That's what I like to add. For this, I kind of want the green to be the bit that pops the most. So I'm going to drop the yellow saturation for the wood, nulls that colour down. Same with the blue. here of the plant pot. We don't want to lose it all, but we want to take some of it out. And then the green, we're just going to push a little bit. Don't want to oversaturate it like this. Don't want it undersaturated. Want it just pushed just a bit, just so it really pops out on the photo. Pretty happy with how this is looking. Super nice, simple, minimalist photo. There you have it. All 3 photos have achieved that minimalist style that I like to go for. Now, you might have been saying, but there's not really much to these photos. They're pretty basic photos. Why would you edit them? What's the edit really adding? And that's kind of the point. With minimalist photos, you really got to be conscious and thoughtful about the composition and the photo that you're actually taking. Definitely with minimalist style and the minimalist look of photography, composition is definitely primary and editing is definitely secondary. I hope you guys have enjoyed these nice little simple edits. Very much the style I'm loving at the moment. Probably going to see a lot more of it on my own Instagram, so make sure you go and follow that. It's HZL_creative if you want to go follow my photography Instagram. Hopefully you've learned a little bit, and maybe even a little bit more about how to edit in Lightroom. If you have enjoyed the video, hit that like button. It is very much appreciated and does help boost the video. So appreciate that. And also, if you aren't already, make sure to subscribe